Well, that was interesting. Did you serve drinks after this, Al? Uh, So anyway, our discussion here, oh, here comes Chris. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. I think you know them, but tell us a little bit about yourself real quick. We'll start right here.
Janine Yanarelli, founder and president of Par Avion Limited, aircraft brokerage based out of Houston.
Jay Messenger Jet Sales, aircraft brokerage firm, 51 years going in this next December. Proud to be here and be on the panel with everybody.
I'm Matt Rosenvalen with Freestream Aircrafts. We're based in the U.S. and headquartered in the U.K. and in the brokerage side as well.
Hi, I'm Brian Proctor. I'm the CEO at Mente Group. We're an aviation consulting and brokerage business based in the Dallas Metroplex.
Chris Ellis, APRO, founder 35 years ago. My dad, Jay, not quite as old. He's been in business, but getting there.
Thanks, guys. We had a really great group, and the topic was what happens after the election. And so that's a pretty interesting topic, and I think we start out by probably the first question is we now know, because when Al set this out and we started working on it, it was 2 weeks ago. Well, we didn't know, so we had to kind of make a shift, but I think we've come up with some great responses. And if you take a look here on the very first one, it looks like we've got a pretty satisfied audience with the outcome, which I think is important. It's going to keep jockeying back and forth, but here we go. Settles in on about 60% yes, so that's great. I guess the first question is, based on the outcome, what's it really going to change about our business? And why don't we start with you?
Well, I can only speak to the feedback that I've been getting for the past year from prospective clients, existing clients, aircraft I brought to the market, those owners. And there was a lot of trepidation, I would say, through Q1 and Q2, which only grew as we went into the summer months. And then the summer is the typical doldrums that lets that undercurrent of concern and fear sort of hide itself, and only to manifest itself after the Labor Day holiday. And what I found is the buyers were still sitting on the sidelines. They were putting off any sort of plans. I heard it repeatedly with a number of aircraft that are ideally positioned to sell in a relatively short period of time had we been in any other year. Well, now here we are, an incredible victory. I don't know if anyone really anticipated the outcome. And the phones rang off the hook last week. Well, okay, it's really only Monday, but it's gotten quiet again. The number of inquiries are down. And I'm wondering what's going on, other than maybe they want to wait to next year and see what kind of tax benefits are rolled out.
Well, you know, we always talk about the first 100 days when a new administration comes in. I think it's more important to talk about the last 4 days. And honestly, in the last 4 days, we've had, we closed an airplane. We had 2 new clients come in, sign acquisition agreements, pay our retainers. Didn't have anybody call and say, we're going to put a plan off. We're going to not buy. We're going to go back to the fence and watch for those 100 days. I think we have to be very logical. We have to not be euphoric. We have to understand the priorities of the buyers and the sellers. I don't think people are going to enjoy bonus depreciation and then want to give that back to a seller in the form of a higher price to pay for the airplane. So I think our demand will remain balanced, our market will remain balanced, and I think we'll have a good year in aircraft sales, and I think that it'll be a productive year for us.
Yeah, I think it seems to be productive, and it's in the short run. I don't think there's going to be a drastic change, right? There's been no policy set to shamble anything. And as some of our friends from the NBAA and GAMA said before, you know, we passed a bilateral bill for the FAA in May that's everybody was fairly happy about. So things are set in place to kind of remain as is, in a sense, in terms of policies. Afterwards, for us, work has continued to be good. The end of year continues to be strong. So we haven't seen anybody jump in from depreciation, et cetera, but the people have been there. And so the outlook seems positive. And I think it's, and as another Trump era, when he was first president, we had some good movement in the industry, and I believe it'll keep going in these next 4 years. Well, renewed 4 years.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everybody. For us right now, it doesn't seem like in the short run anything's going to happen that's different, because the economy hasn't fundamentally changed in the last week. What we have seen with some of our clients is a little sense of optimism about, especially with the regulatory side and what is going to happen with the regulations. And, if you think about, I think the new administration's already come out and said that they're going to try to reenact the tax policy of 2017. So I would expect that we see a renewed change to 100% accelerated depreciation next year. It took them about 12 months last time. My guess is that that'll move up this time because they've just been there before. They know what to do. But you just never know how Congress is going to interact with them, because they're going to want to add, 800 pages of pork to whatever bill that they put forward. But, I think I was talking to one OEM sales guy, and he told me that he had this is anecdotal, but he had 3 LOIs with different customers, and on Wednesday after the election, all 3 got signed. So that's, it's anecdotal, right? But at least that's one data point out there. And I think that we'll see more and more people that are going to be moving into it. But it doesn't really change because, if you think about the number of units that have grown on the market over the last 18 to 24 months, there's a lot of inventory now to be sort of worked through in order before we begin to see real fundamental market change.
Yeah, I think we're feeling a very robust market and a very high confidence and a virtually certain tax benefits coming next year that we're, sundowning. So I think you're going to see a very strong market in 2025. Very strong.
The tax group talked about the 100% bonus versus 1031 exchange. You think that we'll see the 100% bonus come back? And which do you think is best, 1031 or the 100% bonus? Which one do you think impacts us the most? Or is it really does it make a difference? And we'll start down there with you, Chris.
It is interesting. I think it acted, with 100%, it acted like 1031 for virtually the same, right? Because as long as you get 100% depreciation, you could sell your asset and take that income and offset it by your greater or equal purchase. So it acted the same. It's really a CapEx, tax clause. We just are hyper-focused on the, aviation side of it, and because that's what we trade in. But I think more and more people are very sensitive to, when they're buying the airplane and when they get the depreciation, because it's super hard, as the last panel discussed. Even with 100%, if you're buying it early in the year, you're really fighting the personal use issue, which dilutes your 100%. So the fourth quarter is, third and fourth quarter have always been strong. I think it'll continue to be strong. I don't really know the answer to that, Wayne, about whether a 1031 or 100% is preferred or not. I know when it went away and it was 100%, it didn't really change much in our world because the 100% acted very similar. So I didn't really see much difference in, 1031s went away. As long as they had 100%, they acted upon it. So.
I just think it really depends on who the customers are and kind of what's going on in the marketplace at the time, right? And so with corporate clients, and they mentioned it on the previous panel, they don't really care about accelerated depreciation in their world. They're much more focused on EBITDA, and so it's really sort of it's a pre-tax number anyway. So when high net worth individuals, it matters. But I've had a lot of people ask me, so what's going to happen next year and what do we think? And we think it's going to be reinstated. And, so does that push someone off until next year? I think really the driver is what's going on with the current airplane. Where it will begin to make an impact, there were a lot of people that moved into private aviation as owners, not necessarily users, who bought airplanes for the bonus depreciation and then did subleasing programs to operators. And if you think of what's going on now with the strength of those operators, and a lot of those guys are getting impacted because the planes are coming back to them and they don't have it's not like B of A or PNC, they don't have a leasing company to deal with that. So I think on the margins, it's going to be beneficial, but, for the core of who those real buyers are, I really don't think it's going to have any impact, especially at the Fortune 500.
To be honest, I don't have a strong opinion. I think when bonus depreciation was, as you mentioned, was brought up, it was welcomed, it was it was liked, and people have taken good advantage of it. So yeah, could there be a difference between the high net worth guy that sold an entity at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year he could use the depreciation? Sure, or a corporate client, as somebody else said before, it might not matter to them at all. So I think I think the bonus depreciation works right now, and sure, let's keep it.
I think the 1031 exchange really facilitated a change. The bonus depreciation really caused people to go into action. And that was a difference that we all enjoyed in the third and the fourth quarters. And people would say, I've got to close by this year, got to close by this year. That created a huge number of problems in and of itself. So I think that bonus depreciation would cause more people to act.
Everything they said. And as I listened to my fellow panelists, what I thought about is me personally, my own business, and realized, and I'd come to this realization some time ago, that a 1031 would actually benefit my business, because probably 75% of my business are high net worth individuals, family offices, privately held corporations run by the founder who makes the decision anyway. And the corporate side is more of the side of my business that benefits from the bonus depreciation.
Oh, I was going to say, we actually, when you mentioned, yeah, it does kick people into action towards the end of the year. That's one that we're seeing as well. But we do have a corporation that does need to sell some airplanes, and the depreciation at having it done this year is very important to them. So again, it varies on, it's just in case-by-case basis almost.
Coming off of MBAA, there was a lot of talk about, the effect that election has on people making decisions. And my question for you guys is, I've heard both sides. Do you feel there was a slowdown because of the election this year, or was it norm? Did it have any effect on you and your business? And Matt, we'll start with you.
It's, sorry, I lost track of thought. Come again with the?
Yeah, on the pre-election slowdown, did you see anything there this year compared to previous elections?
The pre-election, yes. I do think some people have been on the fence. I've been waiting for the results to come in, kind of know where to go. And it's overall, even for wider political effects, geopolitical things, people have been waiting on the sideline to see what could happen in the U.S. as it has, we know our president today can impose, is keen on tariffs, et cetera, and let's see where some of these things go. But now that it's done, has it, some people mentioned that some OEMs have seen some contracts signed right away. But no, not much.
Jay?
Well, I always think that people make a profession out of fence sitting. And a perfect time to kick that profession into action is around an election cycle. And many of the people that we see on the fence are on the fence all the time anyway, and this just was perfect for them to have a legitimate reason to be on the fence. Frankly, I don't think that group's coming off the fence. I think they're going to stay there. But the real action, the real players have not been on the fence. They've been in the transactional arena, and they weren't afraid about a outcome. After all, not being political, but neither candidate was really against aviation. So we didn't say this would be great, this would be bad. I think that we're going to see people continue to be off the fence and in the action.
We hear excuses everywhere. Having been through a number of four-year cycles, I would say that an election year is something that slows down aircraft sales in general. And I think that each of the aircraft salespeople out here have a different experience or could speak to a different experience, including in a different four-year cycle. But historically, when I worked for an aircraft dealer, and certainly with my own business, I always plan for a slow year. I hope that's not something I bring upon myself, but I plan for it.
Chris?
Yeah, I think coming off of 21 and 22, which was absolutely, ridiculous amount of demand, once in possibly a generation of demand in those 2 years. 23 and 24 have, probably been decent, but they felt like such a sluggish year compared to those. I think the, juxtaposed to those crazy years, I think they feel much slower. Buyers were reacting normal, which felt weird when they were so frothy and doing much different things for so long. There was no fear in the buyers. There's another airplane that took buyers much longer to purchase. The whole process of buying an airplane is much longer now with the pre-buy waiting for slots. I think inflation's hit every part of aviation, besides pricing, is much more expensive nowadays to run airplanes. The fractionals are, I see people going to fractionals all the time because of that. So I think there's a lot of people that are surprised how expensive it is to own an aircraft today. And it's had really not much to do with purchasing it, but that's a little bit of a different topic. But I think the demand has been, it was busy starting in third quarter. Clearly it's been busy now, but first and second quarter was slower for sure. And 23 was slower, decent, but much slower than 21, 22. I think we're going to be super busy this fourth quarter.
I think we just forgot what normal looked like.
Very well be.
We were off a little bit the first half, I would say maybe 20% off in terms of just transaction volume. Our planning business, though, has been just insane all year. And historically for us, election years, and I don't know if it's just, I don't know why, but they've been our best years. I guess there's ambiguity, and then with that, people come to us. We're going to be absolutely slammed between now and the end of the year. We're trying right now to figure out how to add resources to get done all the things we've got to get done between now and the end of the year. But a lot of that was sort of built up through the course of the year, and it's now just sort of it's almost a little bit like farming. You have to plant, you have to water, and then at some time you have to harvest, and we're just in harvest mode right now.
Yeah, one of the questions was kind of around that. It said, which type of aircraft buyers or which type of market buyers do you feel that it affects the most, the ones that delay decisions because of the election year? Janine, you got a thought on that?
Let me read that question.
Yes, go on now. It was about which buyer group, so small, medium, mid-sized cabins.
Well, I don't know if I want to talk about airplane group as much as the type of buyer, the demographics. And I think anyone who's in a position to pull the trigger quickly and arrive at a decision quickly, which primarily are your private companies, your individuals, as opposed to corporate. Unless corporate has the planning done, it's going to be a long, long way before they come to that conclusion of what they buy or sell.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk about, our industry's facing some headwinds. Obviously, we're having a great year. The third quarter market report's out and showing that we're expecting to have a real strong fourth year. But if there's some headwinds there, what do you feel they are or they aren't? And if so, what are they? Jay?
Well, there's always headwinds, and it always amazes me how in this particular cycle, the geopolitical, the price of this, the cost of that, the slowdown of this segment, you'd think that any of those things alone would make huge differences. And we've seen collectively them not make differences. So which one will pull out ahead and cause the greatest disruption to our industry? I don't know, but you can count on headwinds. We always have them. You know, it takes, and Chris, to your point a minute ago, it takes longer to close a transaction today than it ever has. And Janine, I think we were talking on the phone the other day, for 10 different reasons, but unfortunately, those 10 reasons are different for every aircraft transaction, so you can't even anticipate them.
They are the main lingering ones, right? Even from COVID, which has been for OEMs, for Part 135 shops, it's also just parts and supply. Just supply has been tough, and that slows down some of our PPIs, et cetera, and that causes everybody headaches. But I think there's also been a lot of, in terms of mechanics and shops having to get help from outside, it's been tough. It's been tough to get the good skilled laborers in there.
I think we work harder today, honestly, than we ever had to get a transaction accomplished. And I think that and we talked about this again the other day, those people that are coming into our industry that always do at different times and think that our industry looks sexy and that it's easy and that we make a lot of money. I think we may all make good livings. I don't know if anybody could work harder than we all do to get a transaction done. And I don't think it's that sexy. I mean,
we were talking about this the other day, and you know those Crown Royal bags?
Yeah.
So think of a Crown Royal bag, and then take 100 pieces of just wood, and right on the back of them, like 100 different reasons why a transaction will go wrong. Dump them in the Crown Royal bag, shake it up, and on every deal, pour out 10. And that's what we've got right now. And usually it starts with like the pre-buy facility X, you know, or the attorneys can't get the Y, or the bank's having a hard time with the Z. And, you know, it's, we had a deal earlier this year where as part of the inspection, there was a landing gear overhaul, which, you know, if I hear the word landing gear corrosion again this year, it's going to make me jump off the stage on my head. But, and this OEM knew that the landing gear, I mean, like they produced 30 airplanes 10 years ago, so 10 years forward, you'd think that they'd have 10 or 30 sets of landing gear pieces that they needed. We searched and searched and searched for like 3 weeks to find a bolt to get an airplane closed. We had a client who had a 4-year-old ultra long range airplane that went through pre-buy, and we thought it was going to sail through because it had just gone through a 48-month. And, you know, ultimately it ended up with a couple $100,000 of landing gear corrosion that delayed the transaction 2 months. And so, you know, then it's like, okay, well, where's the gear going to go, and who's going to get it? And like, they don't have the manpower to get it done. And yeah, so 100 Scrabble pieces in a Crown Royal bag, shake it up, dump it out every transaction. That's what we've got right now.
Yeah, I'm really glad what we offer as an industry is a product that our customers love, because I think it's really hard to be an owner right now. And what I've witnessed in the last 12 to 24 months, the cost, the downtime, the can't get, you know, engine programming, you can't get, you're down for a year waiting for your engines to get overhauled, even though you're on the program, or, you know, $1.5 million thrust reverser issue with, you know, your engines, or just, the cost is over the top. I've never seen things like the downtime is over the top. The operation cost, and like I mentioned earlier, inflation has hit all these, you know, owners in terms of operating their airplanes by 35%, I would say, in the last 2 years. It's tough to be an owner now, but they love it, and there's Plan B really sucks. So, you know, they stick with it. And the fractionals, I think, probably have benefited more than anybody, because full ownership is super, super pricey, and you better be flying a lot of hours, you know. But I'm sure they've felt a lot of demand. But it's some of the stuff I've seen owners have to go through. We never really witnessed that before. And I don't know how to make it any better. It's like in transactions, like 4 month issue, and, you know, $500,000 to $1 million. It's like absurd, you know.
And, you know, we talk about how much fatigue a buyer or a seller can have in a transaction process. But the truth is, the amount of the fatigue that we have in a transaction, the professionals behind the scene, making sure that the transaction goes through, it has never been as important as it is today for us to work hard as partners in a transaction, stop thinking about that's your side, this is my side, but come to the middle, work as a team, get things accomplished. And, you know, when people are starting to get in our industry and think it looks all those things that it's not, just that piece of it alone is critical that we all work together. And otherwise, we don't get these transactions accomplished.
Yeah, the buzzword I want to not hear again is soft start. Nothing got my blood pressure higher once it was defined for me what soft start from an MRO meant.
I think Michael sent this question to us. It says, do you see buyers moving to new aircraft due to parts issues and the potential delay of closing this year? What do you
I
think?
wish we could go to new airplanes and get them this year.
The two-year
How about that,
backlog is the
Michael?
problem.
I'm talking to you.
We just got to cut pre-buys out, because once you look, you can't unlook, and that causes the problem.
Newer airplanes, I think, are part of the issue, but, I mean, I just mentioned that 650 that was 4 years old and took 2 months because of the landing gear corrosion. I mean, it would be great to have a supply of new airplanes, but in the OEM's credit, I mean, they've done a good job of keeping their order books, 18 to 24 months out, which I think that kind of creates a healthy marketplace. And so, for them, I'm happy. For us, it makes it a little bit more complicated. But, I really right now would not want to go long on a 1998 anything. I think with what we're seeing right now with the cost of we've got a client right now with a Citation 10, and we're getting ready to part it out because of just a couple of maintenance issues on the plane that are more expensive to repair than the plane. And they're going to take a year to get it done. And so I think that older airplanes are going to really struggle in the market going forward. There is going to be a premium paid for newer airplanes. But when I say newer, 2018, 2019 and newer is really kind of what, when you hear someone thinking that, that's what they're thinking. There's not a huge population of pre-owned airplanes in that segment right now available, unfortunately.
And when they do come to market, they go quick, because we tend to talk about sidelines, et cetera, but when there are individuals who know the market well, they're educated guys, these airplanes go very, very fast. So it's educated buyers and good aircrafts also to sell. There's a lot of transactions happening right now on those, and it's strong.
But I don't think people are overpaying. I think people are very careful about what they pay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, with Trump winning, has that affected any of your plans for next year? I know a lot of you inventory aircraft. Does that encourage you to possibly look at doing more, or has it not changed anything? Some comments?
I mean, everybody looks at me. Okay. Yeah, we buy if we see an opportunity that arises. I mean, the election, no election, president, that doesn't really matter. We always are in the marketplace for something that makes sense. We're a brokerage firm that occasionally deals, but we'll see whatever pops up. I think you'll see a lot of Asian airplanes coming on the market. I think with Trump getting in, you'll see a lot of Asian airplanes coming on the market, for sure.
I think
Not that we would buy an Asian airplane.
I think we're going to see pent-up frustration released. I expect to be very busy. I have calls scheduled with a number of clients that have put off the acquisition, and I think they're going to feel comfortable enough to pull the trigger.
No, I was going to say, as a firm, the deals that we find to inventory, it's you find them, it's a good one, you take it, whether it's whichever president, it's the opportunity that comes, right? But that said, the market has been good and things are going well. So as more of the human resource aspect, we're trying to grow, keep up with demand. We need more people to look at these aircrafts. As deals take longer, as the intricacy of the actual airplane and damages and everything that might have happened to them is, we need more researchers, more technical guys, and that's what, as a company, we're trying to grow that way. Research, and that's...
We will add a couple of people next year, just with what we think is going to happen. We'll probably add a managing director on the front end of the business, and we'll probably add technical resources. It would be hard to do what we do without the technical team that we have. And for those of you out there who advise people on which brokers you use, I would definitely look at companies who do have their own internal technical resources, because those guys and ladies that are on site, that are managing those facilities, are worth their weight in gold right now. And so we've just found it easier to have that on staff. And so we'll probably make a couple of investments there next year. But it's also a little bit of a wait and see, because it does take time for policy to work its way through. And in general, I think that the economy, while it's depending on what you read, in some cases it's strong, in some cases it's not. I think it's going to take a little bit of time before that begins to sort of see the uptick where you can really go a little bit more aggressively. But back to the point of an inventory, every deal has to stand on its own, and the plane has to be the right plane at the right time, regardless of who's sitting in the White House.
If we go back to the 100 days, that's April 29th from January 20th. So mark your calendar, and we'll see at the end of April 29th where we are.
I think Q2 is going to explode.
What do you think are the three top things that everybody should focus on going into the new, with the new president and going into the end of this year and the next year? What's the three top priorities for you, and what do you focus on?
To top priorities, when you.
For you and your business, what do you focus on, and what are you watching? What is your concerns?
I'm concerned, continuing concern about something that's never happened in the 37 years I've been in business, which is these massive part delays for engines and loaners and windshields and these 6 months downtime. These are real issues for owners. And I mean, I got a guy with a Sovereign, he's got a year until his engines are due, and they're saying expect to be down a year. You're on an engine program, don't have your airplane for a year while you're waiting to get your engines overhauled. It's like how do you, they're looking to buy another airplane in the interim to go solve their engine issue, which has never been around before. So what do you do to crew? It's a real, you just don't have those issues before. They're hard to solve. So that's a huge, huge part of it. I think these things come out of left field occasionally, like the G500 and G600 when it was, I wouldn't say grounded, but pretty close to for 3 months. Those are new airplanes that came out of left field. You can only fly in 5 knots of wind or something. Like, those are $40, $50 million airplanes. They're $60 million airplanes that, you're advising clients, maybe doing one for your own account. Those are issues that, between the parts and these things that pop up. We never really had those for decades, it didn't feel like. It was an oddball thing. Now it's even more mainstream. It's a problem. It's a problem being an owner. This industry is way behind in servicing the owner, in my opinion.
Yeah, this kind of tags into the previous panel as well. I think planning I've seen customers who have done a really good job planning and getting ready, where they've had much more success when they've entered into the market, because they can be patient, because from time to time there are opportunities out there and you can really be prepared and move forward. And understanding the technical piece of what's going on right now is massively important. I was at a MRO a few months ago and talking to the president of the company, and he said that sitting in one of their warehouses, they had 60 engines on a particular airplane type, waiting for parts to come from the engine OEM. And so if you think about it, that's 60 engines sitting there, that's 60 loaners on airplanes, that's 60 people getting ready to have loaners that they need that they can't get because the parts aren't available. And so immediately I went home and went back to the office and told the guys, I'm like, look, if a plane is on a program, I used to make the assumption, let's go, covered, we're good, don't have to worry about it. Today, if a plane is on a program, you have to really understand, have they done the preparation to be ready for the engine event that's coming up? Is anything coming in the next 24 months that we need to know about? Because it's not as simple as just saying, yeah, it's on a program anymore. But I can't overestimate how important it is right now to do really good planning ahead of time, because it really sort of sets the transaction up. And we've actually gone through this, and we had clients that were thinking about buying this particular airplane type that we deviated off of once we had that piece of information.
So helping set a better expectation is key right now. And the proximity to and from these major events is key based on accepting an airplane, buying it, passing on it. And just, you know, I think the whole contemplation of buying an airplane with a loaner on it, where we used to say in our delivery conditions, no loaners, we have to rethink that, because there are going to be loaners. There are going to be loaner engines. There's going to be loaner APUs that are going to last longer than somebody's. If you could get a loaner, you want to close on the airplane, and you can't make that a delivery condition anymore. You just have to be able to paper around it and pay the right money, the seller, what it takes to take that engine off or put it on, or the APU, and be more accepting of things like that.
The other thing I think we need to think about too is the cost of capital. You know, because someone will look and, you know, pre-buys used to cost $40,000, now they're $150, just baseline pre-buy. But the airplane's going to be down now for, say, 2 months to get through this pre-buy. And so you've got, let's say, Global 7500 or G650, that's a $60 million airplane. Ask a lessor in here, what's the lease amount for that? Somewhere between $550,000 and $600,000 a month. You know, so now you've got an airplane down for 2 or 3 or 4 months with, you know, a hole burning in the owner's pocket. And all of a sudden, that's not a $150,000 pre-buy or a $200,000 part. You know, if it's down for 4 months, that's a $2 million pre-buy cost to the owner. And so as an industry, I don't think we've done a good job of really beginning to wrap our heads around that. But I tell you, the owners have, and back to your point, Chris, you know, if we keep kicking our owners in the shins, you know, they're going to revolt on us, and we got to be careful on that.
Yeah. Speaking to the technical side of a transaction, it is probably the most important part, and having good oversight at this time. But as Brian was speaking, I was thinking of something that I think all of us do here, and certainly I do, before introducing an airplane to the market, is understanding that airplane. I personally go and look at the aircraft that I'm going to sell, surprisingly, because a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are people who do not. And I go through the records on the airplane. I'm fortunate enough to have a background and education that helped me to understand exactly what I'm looking at and what I'm reading. And I think that's the first step in helping the owner of an aircraft or a buyer understand what the future holds, and can translate into savings, because you may turn an aircraft down that you're buying just by your cursory look at the records before you go to pre-buy, spend all that money, and determine that you never should have entered into this transaction, or it's going to be a very costly way out. I think we're also speaking to the fact that how important relationships are. Relationships with the service centers, with completion centers, and with the independent technical advisors that are out there. You certainly want to be on their good side, because when you call them, you want them to say, I'll help you out.
Jay, comments?
No, I think everybody said it well. I mean, you know, you talked about the added cost, and you talk about the cost of capital, and then you talked about the 4-year-old 650 that you wouldn't have expected to have gone in and have those gear problems. So, you know, we also have to be very careful that we don't try to tell a client, hey, look, maybe we don't need to look so hard, maybe we don't need to work so hard on a pre-buy, because it's never been more costly and it's never been more time-consuming. And so we have a real role to play there, and be very careful that we don't try to manipulate a transaction to not take the right due diligence.
Time's running a little short, so I got a couple of just more yes and no questions. One was, it was up earlier, it says it's corporate buyers coming back to the market finally. Let's just start down there and come down.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but
Yes, and can I just add one thing? And I just want to talk a minute about what we went through in 2020, 21, 22. Corporations stopped flying, and when first-time buyers were coming in, they weren't bringing anything to the table. They didn't bring a trade. as a corporate buyer comes back in, they're bringing something. So it ought to help our healthy balance of supply, not just the inventory and demand.
Yes.
Next one is first-time buyers. We saw a lot of them come in during COVID. Are they staying, or are you now seeing them, deciding to get out of the, aviation business?
I think there's going to be, and still are, first-time buyers. I think the first-time buyers that bought old aircraft were seduced into buying old, big, expensive aircraft, but around COVID time, because charter rates were through the roof or whatever, are feeling, the tide's against them. So I think you'll see those guys exit. But first-time buyers, yeah, right now, they're doing great. Yeah, but it's a much more normal market.
We've had all of the above. We've had first-time buyers that have had horrible experiences. We've had first-time buyers that have had great experiences since COVID. We've got a 650 right now that's going to close, I think, next week, and it's a first-time buyer, and he's absolutely hated the airplane because it's cost him so much. So, but I feel like, to Chris's point, I feel like we're entering back into normalcy, but I wouldn't want to own a 1998 anything right now.
We have a first-time owner right now, young guys buying some big aircrafts, and that's beautiful to see. And they're a project of going into fractional charters and then moving into their ownership. But going backwards, we've had, right at the start of COVID, we've had some people kind of outstretch themselves. Some people became very rich very quickly during COVID and couldn't necessarily. It was great to go from charter to ownership, but that stretched them out a little too much. But we've seen some of these people even go back into fractional. And I think fractional is obviously, there's a lot of flights and their uptake is great. And that's going to be a very supportive part of our industry.
I think aviation is pretty sticky, and I haven't seen a lot of first-time buyers that felt like they made such a mistake that they need to get out. Seasoned buyers can be very overwhelmed by the cost of owning an airplane today and want out. But I just don't see that there's a rush of first-time buyers getting out.
I think I successfully talked those first-time buyers out of an airplane, and the rest of them that I did work with plan on keeping it or adding or changing out equipment.
Questions up here about our international partners. What do you think the international market thinks of the election, and is that going to affect anything for them?
I said earlier, I think you see a lot of airplanes coming out of China. I believe that. I've gotten lots of calls this week and stuff coming. I said, I'm sure this will be a trend for China. I don't really, it's too early to feel anything else, I don't think. I do think that this incoming administration, I don't know what they can really affect, but I think their philosophy is buy American, pro-American, nationalism. So I don't know if they can affect much from an OEM standpoint or whatever by maybe give benefits to buying Americans. Probably not, but I don't think they'll, isolate, corporate aircraft. But there will be, my understanding is that's what they're interested in, is more buying America. So whatever that turns into in aviation, I don't know.
I used to say that a rising tide raises all boats. And I would say that that's true. So depending on how the U.S. economy goes, I think that there's going to be some bleed over into other economies. However, there's also massive regulatory impacts in other countries around the world, other regions around the world, that are causing people to shift away from private aviation. So you've got this sort of balancing act between improving economies and the regulatory environment. And so if this trend, this anti-regulatory trend that's currently present in the U.S. begins to bleed over around the world, then I think that you could see airplanes being exported out of the U.S. into Europe. But I would say, in large extent, that we've been a net importer of pre-owned airplanes for the last 4 years.
As a side comment, I think South America is coming back and doing pretty well. I think we can foresee them staying strong. And Asia, yes, on the other hand.
We've done more import-export this year than we've ever done.
So I work heavily in the international marketplace and always have, and I have close ties to the European marketplace at this time. My phone blew up overnight, mostly from people in the trade with very positive comments. And if I were to look forward 6 months, 9 months, I would have to say that I think operators of aircraft around the world are going to take heart from a positive growth in aviation here in the States.
The dollar's strong, so I think some overseas buyers may be feeling that they're in the process right now, and their currency just changed 10, 15%. The purchase price just went up.
I saw one question up there that asked if I had the replacement for myself when I retired the first of the year, and I wanted just to tell you real quick. Unfortunately, Al declined, so I guess we're back at the beginning again. So, Al, do we have time for a question or two? One question. Anybody? And we cannot see you, so you'll have to speak up. Well, that means you guys did a great job. Thank you very much, and let's have a great meeting.